All right, so let's talk about more about the election fraud in Michigan. That's the second topic for the day. And what we talked about before about the parabolic effect and all this other stuff, what's going on. This is something I heard months ago, when I was looking into this. We always looked into the whole situation of the voting patterns because they're very, and I looked at the voting patterns because I was very curious the way a lot of the networks would call these elections with 55 in, 60% in, and they say, well, there's voting patterns which come on in, and they don't really go outside the margin, and they stay consistent because when the votes start coming in, it's almost like a deck of cards being shuffled, and they're going to come in Republican, Democrat, especially when they come in through the mail. So you'll see this line in this graph. Now, I put in here right off the bat, and I encourage everybody, John, make sure this has got almost 700,000 views now. Make sure we put a link so people can go and watch this whole thing because I can't explain it. In fact, I bet you guys can explain this stuff if you've watched it. I had to watch it twice because it was so confusing. But what a parabolic effect is and how pattern analysis, this is how they get the red flag and they start looking for something. Well, that's not right. It's what I looked at when I saw how Biden is getting almost triple the votes when he's taking a lead against Bernie than the pattern that was set. So take a look real quick. He talks about what a parabolic effect is.
Basically has done a lot of data analysis. We're going to share with you some of the graphs he's done, which are very, very illuminating. But Benny and others like John Brakey in our U.S. Senate election in Massachusetts, where we clearly knew we won, but we did something interesting. We went and did FOIAs, and we asked for the participating voters, which means the number of voters who actually voted, which is this tan column, and the number of votes cast, which is the actual ballots. And what we found consistently in at least the 7 cities they gave us data, there are more votes than voters, okay? So this was something illuminating. Then Phil Evans got involved, and Phil looked at the data of our votes. In Franklin County, for example, where we won, the only county where 70-80% of the votes are hand counted, we found out that as the number of votes proceed, you see that the votes, these lines represent our vote accounts. Mine is the red and my opponent is a blue. You notice they flatten. And this is how curves should look over number of votes, they flatten. However, in all the other counties where the votes were machine counted, the votes do not converge. They have this parabolic effect. Right, Phil? And that parabolic effect, Phil, is one of the big indicators of something going on, voter issues or election fraud. Am I right, Phil?
Correct.
Yep. So that's what we're showing here. So anyway, that's the background. Let's jump into Michigan. Right. So the reason
Now, I didn't really put a lot of parts to cut up for this next part coming up, but once again, that's the parabolic effect they're talking about. You saw the way the lines...
So the only thing, the only thing he's mentioning here, Paz, is that it's not a straight line. It's just... Instead of being a straight line, it's in the shape of a parabola, which that's the shape of a parabola right there. So that's what he said. That's what he means by parabolic effect, saying that it's not like how the previous graph showed. It's like, that looks pretty normal if you're looking at counts or ballots and stuff. And then the fact that it goes to a parabolic effect like that's pretty interesting there. That's and this is because it was machine generated.
Right. Versus hand counted ballots.
Versus hand counted. See, so hand counted, well, you get that.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
But literally, machines, and you get a parabola. Like, that's F equals X squared. That's Y equals X squared. Put that in a calculator.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I'm not good at these things. Like, I'm pretty good with numbers
calculus.
From my bookie days. You know what I'm saying? I understand spreads. I watch them. But, that's the thing. And he says this is how they start catching things. And what he had learned in this analysis, fam, is that in Michigan, you can vote 2 different ways. You can vote either down the party line, all Republican, all Democrat, or you can vote for individuals. And he did a study, and he found out that in more Republican precincts, there were less people voting for Donald Trump individually, more people voting for the party line, and actually that's where the votes were flipped to Joe Biden, that they were saying, okay, this is not right, something's going on. Right. And the other guy that's with him, his name is Beanie Smith. He works closely with Bev Harris. Bev Harris is the one who talks about fraction magic. Now, they'll go into some stuff in this particular video, and they'll explain to you the way our votes are stored, and it's stored in metrics, in numbers, like point, which is something that shouldn't be happening because one vote is one person and whatnot. And that just shows you the way these kind of algorithms can go into play, and they can fraction stuff off, and that's the fraction magic. And if you just look, if you watch the screen, you'll see it will never go outside that realm. It will always stay that way. So that means the machines will flip votes from one candidate to another to make sure that the algorithm that was implemented, into the computer stays true, and they get the results they want, not the results that actually go in. So now he has some analysis and some discussion right here. This is 1 minute 41 44 to 42 44. Johnny's going to play it real quick, and he's going to tell the results.
Any changes. Okay. So what's the discussion? So those are the results. Let's have a discussion here. So the algorithm, we believe, is a weighted race allocation method. It's a transfer of a percent of votes from one candidate to another. As we've discussed, the percent is a weighted decimal value, and we can calculate it as we get more data. But clearly, the weighted race method, and one of the things is the weighted race, as we mentioned at the outset, is a documented feature in election systems as early as 2001. And all major vendors, we had a discussion about that, right? It's not just Dominion, it's all of them are believed to have this feature. Diebold, as we showed in 2001, had, maybe it was earlier, but Bev Harris's work uncovered it was originally in the Diebold systems. Am I missing anything there, Benny?
No, that the breakup of the election industry started with Diebold. So all of the software that the other vendors probably would have used, the source code would have originated from the Diebold.
Right. Yeah, right. So
all right. So once again, fam, his analysis, this is a weighted thing. It's an algorithm that's put in the machines. And it's funny when it happens in 2001, because in 2000, they won the election, hanging Chadge, moving people from the voter rolls. In 2004 was the first time they stole it electronically in Ohio when they did this analysis after, and they found out these machines were messed with. They were flipping votes. This is Clint Curtis. This is the stuff we talked about. And the people we have talking right here, Dr. Shiva, went to MIT. A mathematician, engineer, scientist, the whole 9 yards. He's got all these credentials. And then he's a Republican that ran and he calls himself a populist Republican in Massachusetts for senator. And, Mr. Smith over here, Benny Smith, whatever you want to call him, Bev Harris, more of a liberal, progressive, that kind of thing. Been studying this for a long time. So there's a coalition. And even these guys are standing together and say, yes, this was definitely an algorithm within the computer. Guys, go back and watch it, because I didn't even show the way he plots the graphs X and Y and how he shows his math, because I don't want to explain it because I'm not good at it. I had to watch it twice to understand it. But it is really interesting, fam. And if there's anything you want to talk about,
I just want to note that this is why some people on the left who have never actually looked into this kind of thing are saying that Donald Trump it's impossible that there's fraud, because otherwise the Republicans would have lost all the Senate and the congressional races. So no, actually, that actually proves that there's something up with that, because you can't claim that in these counties that they just didn't vote for Donald, they didn't vote for president in the most important election of our time. When you're breaking records, when Joe Biden literally supposedly
77
had
million,
5 more million votes.
No, it's 7 million.
Oh, now it's 7 million.
It's getting close.
7 million more votes than Barack Obama. You're going to tell me that happened? Are you serious? That you believe that? And so if that is the case, if Joe Biden really got 7 million more votes than Barack Obama, they would have won the House, the Senate, everything.
That's what happened last time.
That's
when he
what
won.
happened last time.
It didn't happen this time.
That point that you keep fucking regurgitating at me and throwing at me.
You're proving our point.
You're proving our point.
You're proving that there's an algorithm
in
the machines that they were and that's the thing. There's also reports coming out that I think in Pennsylvania or it was in Michigan, they said president voted only ballots, and it was something like 600,000 for Biden and 1,000 for Donald Trump. For people to just vote for president only. So that's really suspicious, because you can mark a lot of ballots that way and get them in quickly, not go down the line. So this is the last part of this particular right here. This is the conclusion now, and this conclusion is the most important part, because this is what we have to get to. Once again, remember, ladies and gentlemen, it's about fair elections. It's not about Donald Trump. It's not about Joe Biden. It's about getting an election system we can all trust in, that's transparent, and the will of the people will stand, so we can get some real populist policies passed. Let's take a look at them. The conclusion.
Such a coup, Democrats, Republicans, or both, or did Biden win? Now, the conclusion that we have, because ultimately, why are we doing this? Why, important question left is why. I think what we all want is the inputs and the outputs today in our voting systems are unverifiable. That's the unfortunate truth we all have to deal with. And if we don't deal with that, we're sleeping. We're not being real citizens, but this is the God's honest reality. If we take away our rose-colored glasses, for far too long, we've been looking at Venezuela or Afghanistan or other countries. Oh my God, those have banana republics. But the reality is the United States voting systems, the inputs and the outputs to our voting systems are unverifiable. That means the evidence is ambiguous.
Yep.
So how do we get out of this? So now that we've identified the real problem, which is first bullet, what's a real solution? Well, here are some attributes of those solutions, we believe. One is we need verifiable inputs. And what that means is we need permanent voter registration, for example. What that means is, wouldn't it be nice if we actually had some way to have a voter registration card? And this gets over the Republican-Democrat rift on this issue. The second issue is open source of software. All of these softwares are owned by a few companies. We can't even go in and see which switches are turning on. It should be open source. The third is hand-marked paper ballots. And Benny, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. The hand-marked paper ballot is such a viable solution to this, because if at any point you want to remove the computers from the process, you can still arrive at an output. That is a true input. The voter intent is enshrined with hand and eye coordination. Yes, there will be some errors and we can use software to help us with that. But computers they work best when they are automating processes. Anything that's repeatable can be automated. And the process of repeating voting happens over and over again, and it lends itself to automation, and such automation that we can see why a pattern or an algorithm like this. And again, that the documented feature of a weighted election is such a bad idea, and the only thing that can verify to us in a black box is the input. And if we can't know if a weighted election was conducted. It's a feature, it's not a bug. Yeah. So the only way we could get back to that is to for the citizens to be able to remove the computers from the situation. I think in Michigan, what happened was they saw that something was wrong, they bypassed the computer and they hand counted it, and then they got to the true number.
Johnny, can you pause that real quick?
That to get to the true number, you could remove the computers to do so.
All right, Johnny, real quick, I just want to say, and these are a lot of things we talked about: verifiable inputs, permanent voter registration card. We could talk about open source. How many times have we been saying that? How many times have you heard the Convo Couch talk about open source? We can't have proprietary software, hand-marked paper ballots, saved ballot images. We've had Breaky on the show. All these machines, that's why the whole accessibility kind of argument goes into play. Once you scan it through the machine, it takes a picture of it. Therefore, you automatically have a count that can be accessed. Whether it's accessed or not, that's the question, but it's there. And you have to save these things for 22 months. We found that in so many situations, they would ruin this. They would turn this feature off. Once again, the state was trying to say they can turn this feature off, but that's something that's against the law. And they say, and publish them publicly online. Automatic audits right off the bat. We don't have an audit system here. 1% audit, it's ridiculous. You got to audit the whole thing. And publish precinct level data, poll tapes on election night. And that's when I get to where it's casted, it's counted. Those poll tapes that are out in front of the precincts we saw in Florida, you have to publish those and make those public records. Yeah. Some people were taking pictures of them and said, these things are not right. They're not looking good at all.
I'd say public counting too. Yeah. I'd say make all of that whole process entirely public.
And Dr. Shiva, I took a picture of it just in case they took it down. He said, Mr. President Donald Trump, Mr. Biden, our analysis in Michigan indicates a computer algorithm was likely used to transfer 69,000 votes. We are willing to subject our research results to a critical and transparent review with your representatives. Are you open, Dr. Shiva? He got a claim that this is about election fraud is disputed. Download it. Huh?
What?
It says inventor of email. Did he invent the email?
I have no clue. I didn't even see that last time. That's not on my thing.
That's not on our thing.
Oh, how did you get that? Oh, it's on his thing.
Interesting.
Gotcha. Oh, it's right there. Inventor of email. Yeah. All right. Really quickly, now it's kind of funny because in this next clip, because we have to get into this, Donkey over here, who makes our life harder, Rudy Giuliani. Somebody was saying, all right, with all this talk, what's going on with the machines? Here's Dr. Shiva. A lot of people talk about the software. Somebody had said, do you have a whistleblower from
By the way,
Dominion?
He did invent.
He did?
Yeah. Indian American sciences engineer politician.
Yeah. Interesting.
And promoter of conspiracy.
Wow.
Promoter of conspiracy. See what they do to him?
Yeah.
Yeah. See what they do to him? And that's the thing. There's actually a rebuttal article on this.
He's notably for his widely discredited claim to be the inventor of email, based on the electronic mail software called email he wrote as a New Jersey high school student.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Guy went to MIT. He's got all these degrees, really smart, but they're going after him right now.
Theorist.
He's a conspiracy theorist. Pretty much when he was presenting the data on his Massachusetts run for senator. So that's why. But once again, he shows basic data analysis. He has other people to go with him that follow these patterns. So there's something to be looked at. And that's what you really got to look at when you come to these elections. When you see these things, you know something's up. Elections don't move that far, that fast. They simply do not. No. And when it's okay for the establishment to call an election early because it benefits them, they stand behind the same type of science. When it doesn't stand to help them, they'll change it. Oh, that's logical. A lot of votes came in from Detroit and the Democratic area. Yeah, 138,390, all for Biden alone. Now, Giuliani explains the lawsuit. People asked him if there was a whistleblower. But this is interesting, fam. Look what he says here.
Asked about is particularly this Dominion voting software. This was the software that was used in Michigan. And in Antrim County, they had Joe Biden up by thousands of votes. They claimed there was a software glitch. It was discovered. It was fixed. And then it turned out that President Trump was actually up by thousands of votes. We know that you and your team have been investigating this. At the present time, do you have any whistleblowers inside Dominion who you're speaking with?
Well, I wouldn't call them whistleblowers. We have a person who's come forward with an affidavit inside of Dominion that has said that Dominion observed the 100,000 phony ballots that were brought in at 4 o'clock in the morning on November 5th that were all Biden ballots that appeared by every measure to be phony ballots since they were brought in the back door. They were not in the proper containers. They were sticking out of the paper bags and cardboard boxes. And they were told that these were ballots that were needed to catch up to Trump because Trump was too far ahead. When they were counted, they were all counted in favor of Biden. The woman who has given us an affidavit, who worked for Dominion, said that she saw not a single Trump vote. She was there for 4 or 5 hours. And it appeared to her to be horribly corrupt. And when she reported it, nothing was done about it. She was told it wasn't any of their business. So that's not a whistleblower. That's a witness on the record in our lawsuit in Michigan, which is why I feel pretty good about the lawsuit. There's a 100,000 vote fraud. Do we have other witnesses for that are somewhat reluctant to come forward right now? Yes. We can probably corroborate that 3 or 4 times. Wow. So I think they're finished on that. I think that's something that actually happened. They brought 100,000 votes in. They were all Biden votes. There was not even a vote for another Democrat. And it was intended because they were panicked because Trump was ahead by much more than they anticipated.
So that was that part right now. It's not a whistleblower, but it's an eyewitness. The vendor was there, access in there. Obviously, they said they kicked a lot of the Republicans out so they couldn't see this. They saw them going in through the back door. They weren't in the proper containers. And that is a little bit something that, once again, I would say that's pretty harsh right now. If they're not stored and transported right according to the laws of the chain of custody for the state, then they're supposed to be invalid. Yeah. So if they're saying they're coming in and just through the back door, boxes, whatnot, okay, fine.
And the problem is this happens all the time, but this is the first time somebody like Donald Trump, for a presidential race, has really pursued it to this level. I mean, even Al Gore, he pursued it, but it wasn't that he didn't pursue multiple states like this. I mean, this is unprecedented with this being pursued. Now, let's look at what Giuliani said that is entirely wrong, because we're fair here. We're not going to skew this narrative that Giuliani is right on everything, because he's not.
Giuliani, you're fucking making our life hell right now.
You are. You're making our life hell.
I mean, and once again, when I saw it, it's not awful, but once again, where are you coming from? It's this boogeyman that they got to present to a lot of their
socialism.
Oh, they got to do. You know what I'm saying? Just leave it out of this shit right now.
An update on Dominion, and how important do you believe the concerns that are being expressed in a number of states about the ability of these machines not to be hacked?
Well, first of all, the machines can be hacked. There's no question about that. Their machines can be hacked, but it's far worse than that. Well, Dominion is a company that's owned by another company called Smartmatic through an intermediary company named Indra. Smartmatic is a company that was formed way back in about 2004, 2003, 2004. You're going to be astonished when I tell you how it was formed. It was formed really by three Venezuelans who were very close to the dictator Chavez of Venezuela, and it was formed in order to fix elections. That's the company that owns Dominion. Dominion is a Canadian company, but all of its software is Smartmatic software. So the votes actually go to Barcelona, Spain.
Okay.
So we're using a foreign company that is owned by Venezuelans who are close to Chavez, are now close to Maduro, have a history. They were founded as a company to fix elections. They have a terrible record, and they are extremely hackable.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
So, okay, the machines...
Smartmatic is in Venezuela. Okay,
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah. But the machines are hackable, yeah, but this has nothing to do with Venezuela. Venezuela has like fair and free elections, unlike we do. We don't have that. They have that. The fact is Venezuelans were able to actually have democracy and transparency in their elections. Countries like Bolivia and the global south have way better elections than we do. The fact is that Maduro, regardless of what you think of him putting in this pro-neocon language, Maduro dictator and Chavez and blah, 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 it's absolutely irrelevant to your case. It completely dismisses and diminishes any sort of credibility that you could possibly fucking have, and it irritates the hell out of me because when we're talking about elections over here and we have to put you in front because you're the one that's doing it, it literally discredits everything you say about the election front because people are like, oh, look at him. He's trying to legitimize elections in Venezuela.
Freaking way.
The Venezuelan elections are fair and free. They're the most fair and free. And this is ridiculous.
And the whole thing is the Smartmatic does come from Venezuela. That's where their offices are. You try to kind of like link it down. He eventually tries to connect it to George Soros. But the bottom line remains, when it comes to Smartmatic Dominion, it's not an open source software. We can't see what's going on. It's an easy fix. So him with the dog whistle trying to get those other people involved is kind of stupid right now. I hope he doesn't kind of harp on this stuff. But then the right runs with this. You got Maria Bartiromo, whatever her name is, the Italian girl from Fox. I think she's pretty good when it does a lot of things. But now she's taking this and going, we hear parts are coming from China. It's like, guys, come on. Please just stay fucking focused over here. Stay focused
McCarthyism.
Bullshit.
It's just literally diminishes anything you say. This is what I mean. Like, nobody's really getting this right. Yeah. Even the people pursuing these elections. Yeah. Because you muddy the waters with all this other political crap. Stick on the election issue. Stick on the numbers. Stick on the facts. Do not bring in your political ideologies here. It's just as bad as saying Russians hacked the elections.
Same
the
thing.
Chinese and the Venezuelans are hacking. Why would they want Joe fucking Biden, who literally is all in favor of cooing Venezuela, just the same, of cooing Bolivia, of China taking ships to the South China Sea? This doesn't make any logical sense. You all have to completely abandon your little brainwashing of these ideologies that you've been fed and look at things nuanced, look at things not emotionally, just logically.
Yeah. Let's remember that the Venezuelan policy was Obama's policy that, he labeled them as a threat to the United States, and just Donald Trump was continuing that policy. So, Joe Biden is not going to be sensitive and nice to Venezuela. He's got the same type of mentality when it comes to everything south of the border. Shit, I mean, Joe Biden was part of the administration that took the coup and threw out Manuel Zelaya in Honduras and turned the country into hell, which led to a lot of mass migration over here. So, I mean, this thing is just kind of crazy. Now, it does open up a door where people are going, people who are new to this whole thing on the right are like, let me see who owns this company. Oh, it's owned by another company. Who's owned by another company? Welcome to the game, ladies and gentlemen. We know this 3 years ago that it's hard to find out who's owning these companies. They're subsidiaries of another company, of another zombie companies, tied to hedge funds where it's proprietary ownership as well as proprietary software. In Michigan State, 2 senators asked for an audit for certification. Just want to point that out. If more people start getting on this bus as far as like, let's make sure that we audit these elections before we certify them. That can lead to more of an autopsy, which we want. I just wanted to point that out in Michigan. So we have that. And a few months ago, AOC blamed voter suppression for Sanders' loss. Let's get this tweet up right here. Fam?
Okay.
We'll play the video. Or?
He's behind. Okay. So AOC basically blamed the rampant voter suppression for Biden beating Sanders by 250,000 votes in Michigan. Now, there was voter suppression. There was a ton of it. But that voter suppression eventually, it's not just voter suppression. It becomes fraud because you are disenfranchising people from their right to vote. You're reducing the amount of polling places, yes, and all of that. But apart from that, it's the machinery and the lack of counting these ballots that were made for people who wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders. We called this out when this was happening in Michigan. And I just wanted to point out, let's just hear what you said, but I just want to point out that in 8 months, all of a sudden, the Democrats stopped suppressing the vote. Yeah. They stopped committing election fraud. They stopped doing these things.
Yeah.
Last thing, you did a campaign event at the University of Michigan. It had 10,000 people. It was like a rock star status. But those kids did not show up, at least if you look at the numbers. I mean, just overall, this race. Yeah. So how can you say the progressive position is still prevailing nationwide when Joe Biden is winning so much?
Well, I think one thing that isn't being talked about is the rampant voter suppression in this country. Right there in Ann Arbor, where we had that rally, those kids were waiting 3 hours in line to vote in Michigan. And so when we talk about who's turning out and who's not turning out, we absolutely...
So just to be clear, you're saying that you think voters didn't get to vote that wanted to vote in Michigan?
Absolutely. You know, obviously there's also more that we need to do in terms of turning out youth voters. We need to make sure that we're inspiring young people to turn out. But when you do turn out, you should not be waiting 3, 4, 7 hours in order to vote.
Last
and
thing,
that causes people
you're
to
working
leave.
within the system now in this legislation.
All right, so not for nothing, fam. Bernie Sanders got the election called on him. She's talking about 250,000 votes. They called it with 54%, and he was down 100,000 votes. Just to say that. Go ahead, fam.
No, yeah. And so it is voter suppression. You're right. We talked about the long lines, kids waiting for hours, 7 hours here, 8 hours here, where they had pizza delivered to them. I mean, this is nothing new. She's saying that. So now that we have COVID, though, it wasn't just the long lines and the lack of polling places. They're going to suppress your vote another way because that is the new situation now. It's COVID. People use the mail-in ballots. So that is election fraud, AOC. You can call it voter suppression, but at the end of the day, somebody is doing that on purpose to disenfranchise voters. That is election fraud, and it's happening again, and it didn't stop just randomly because the Democrats had a hallelujah moment and decided that they were just going to be fair. It didn't stop. Anybody that the establishment, whether it's the Democratic establishment, the Republican, or a combination, in my opinion, is what's happening now, is the whole establishment is whatever they want is what they get. And we haven't had a real election in decades. This is nothing fucking new. So it is hypocritical, okay, to pretend that all of a sudden it's all gone away and like that she didn't say that 8 months ago that it's different. Somebody said, well, this is different. It's different because primaries are they're controlled by the Secretary of State. Yeah. Okay, they're run by the state and the counties.
Absolutely.
It's a county by county issue. Nothing changed from the primary to the general. Nothing. The only thing that changed
is
that
person,
Donald Trump instead of Bernie Sanders. That's the only thing that fucking changed.
And Clinton Curtis, who we interviewed once before too, he just was running in Florida. He won his primary, lost in the general. He'll run again. You know the whole Clinton Curtis story. He said the solution to this is that for every hour you wait beyond 60 minutes, the county has to give you $100. So if you wait in line for 3 hours, the county owes you $200. If you wait in line for 4 hours, the county's got to give you $300. Fam, they'll straighten out their elections quick if they got to start doling out money left and right, and they'll make it very mellifluous, and they will stop disenfranchising young people to vote because AOC is 100% right over here. The way that you have to wait 2, 3, 4, 7 hours, she jumped, is voter suppression, and they shouldn't have that done. That is by design. And by the way, that was your party who was doing that to these kids. Just to let you know. Now, listen, the only reason why I put this next one up real quick, and we're just going to talk about this because two people on the phone yesterday on my phone calls told me about this stuff. They couldn't confirm it, but what they're saying is that they're getting reports that in Nevada, the AI and the computer vision experts are telling us that after manually lowering the signature settings, the computer they used for signature verification in Nevada is not reliable. 200,000 votes counted, 400,000 plus signatures had no observation. Now, fam, I haven't been able to confirm this, but like I said, I heard from 2 people on the phone, and they're starting to run this down. You broke the story from Whitney Webb. We should have her on the show soon. And we saw this kind of ourselves when we went and saw the validation of signatures are being used by machinery, where it was traditionally sat around a table and Republicans and Democrats can go over it to make sure it's there. Now they're moving they're using machinery to verify the signatures and passing it through. The only thing is that you can set the sensitivity level on low and pretty much a scribble will go through. I can't confirm this. I've heard about this. I'm going to chase this down to see what's going on. Supposedly, there's a lot of stuff breaking in Nevada, a lot of fuckery going around that we're going to hear more of in the next couple of days. So just stay tuned to that.